Japan's most powerful battleship, the Yamato, was more than a ship, it was a floating fortress, a symbol of naval supremacy. Yet in April 1945, it was sent on a mission so desperate, so reckless, that it became a legend of courage, tragedy, and futility all at once. This is the story of Operation Tengo, the suicide mission of the Yamato. By the spring of 1945, the Pacific War had turned decisively against Japan. The Allies were closing in on Okinawa, a crucial island that would provide a staging point for the eventual invasion of Japan. The Imperial Japanese Navy was shattered. Aircraft carriers, cruisers, and destroyers had been lost in countless battles, leaving only a handful of capital ships. Among them, the Yamato stood out, largest battleship ever built, bristling with guns, armor, and a reputation that inspired both awe and fear. But despite its power, the situation was hopeless. The Yamato wasn't just being sent to fight, it was being sent to die. Operation Tengo was designed as a desperate measure. The battleship, escorted by a handful of destroyers, would sail from Japan to Okinawa, engage the Allied fleet, and fight until it sank. There was no expectation of survival. It wasn't just a naval operation. It was a statement of resolve, a final act meant to inspire a nation on the brink of defeat. From the outset, the mission was fraught with impossible odds. Allied air and naval supremacy meant that any surface ship venturing close to Okinawa was likely to be destroyed before it even reached the island. The Yamato, despite its size and firepower, was vulnerable to air attack. Aircraft could strike from hundreds of miles away, torpedoes could cripple its engines, and overwhelming numbers would make defense impossible. Still, the Japanese High Command hoped the ship could disrupt the invasion, inflict casualties, and perhaps, against all odds, turn the tide, even if only slightly. The crew aboard the Yamato knew what lay ahead. They were seasoned sailors, many of whom had fought in earlier battles like Leyte Gulf and the Solomon Islands campaign. Yet they were also acutely aware that Operation Tengo was almost certainly a one-way mission. Sailors wrote letters to families, etched names and messages into personal effects, and prepared themselves mentally for what they called the final battle. The atmosphere aboard was a mixture of pride, dread, and quiet resignation. The battleship itself was an engineering marvel. At over 260 meters long and displacing 72,000 tons fully loaded, the Yamato dwarfed almost every other ship afloat. Its main battery consisted of 9 18.1-inch guns capable of firing shells over 40 kilometers, massive weapons designed to crush enemy ships. Its armor was up to 650 millimeters thick in places, intended to withstand hits from other battleships. Secondary guns, anti-aircraft batteries, and advanced fire control systems made it a formidable fortress on the sea. Yet no matter how powerful, it was not invincible. Against hundreds of Allied aircraft armed with torpedoes and bombs, the Yamato's size and weight became liabilities. As the Yamato and its escort of destroyers left the port of Tokuyama on April 6, 1945, the men aboard understood the stakes. Every radar blip, every aircraft sighting could mean death. Allied reconnaissance had already spotted the fleet, and carrier-based planes were likely to intercept them long before they reached Okinawa. The mission was essentially a march toward destruction, with honor and duty as the only shields against inevitability. For many sailors, the experience was surreal. The ship moved like a colossus through calm seas, its guns glinting in the sun, while crews performed drills and prepared weapon systems. On deck, sailors would glance at distant planes and horizon lines, aware that their opponents were waiting with unmatched firepower. The tension was palpable, a constant hum beneath the normal rhythm of life aboard a battleship. As the fleet approached Okinawa, the challenges of the mission became starkly apparent. Allied planes launched wave after wave of attacks from the air. Torpedoes skimmed the water, bombs streaked through the sky, and the Yamato's anti-aircraft defenses fired relentlessly. The ship's gunners, trained for years, aimed with precision, but the sheer number and coordination of the attacking aircraft overwhelmed them. Despite the battleship's massive armor, torpedo hits breached hull compartments, slowing the ship and causing critical flooding. The story of Operation Tengo is not just about the ship, but about the human courage aboard it. Sailors manned stations under intense fire, tended to the wounded, and performed feats of skill and bravery even as the situation became hopeless. Officers coordinated damage control teams, fought fires, and tried to keep the massive vessel afloat while under relentless assault. The chaos was unimaginable. Explosions, water flooding compartments, fires blazing, alarms screaming. A nightmarish symphony of destruction played out in real time. Despite the overwhelming odds, the Yamato's guns continued to fire. Shells streaked toward enemy ships and aircraft, evidence of the battleship's formidable offensive power. Each volley was precise and calculated, reflecting decades of naval experience. Yet no matter how effectively the crew fought, the attackers had one critical advantage: numbers. Carrier aircraft swarmed in coordinated waves, and each attack chipped away at the battleship's defenses. By mid-afternoon on April 7, 1945, the Yamato was critically damaged. Fires raged across the decks, flooding compartments threatened to sink her, and casualties mounted. Still, the crew held to their orders, manning guns and performing damage control until the inevitable moment arrived. Around 2:30 p.m., the Yamato capsized and exploded, taking most of its crew of over 3,000 men with it. The ship, a symbol of Japan's naval pride, had completed its mission in the only way it could, by fighting until the very end. Operation Tengo stands as a stark example of the desperation and heroism of wartime decisions. It was a mission that was doomed from the start, yet it showcased the bravery, skill, and discipline of the men who served aboard the Yamato. For historians and naval enthusiasts, the operation is both tragic and awe-inspiring, a combination of technological marvel, human courage, and the grim realities of war. Even today, the wreck of the Yamato rests on the seafloor near Okinawa, a silent monument to one of the last great battleship missions in history. The ship's story continues to captivate, reminding us of the limits of technology, the costs of war, and the extraordinary courage of those who sailed her into what they knew was certain death. If you thought battleships were obsolete by World War II, the Yamato's final voyage proves just how powerful and vulnerable they could be. But the story doesn't end here. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into the relentless attacks from the air, the heroic actions of the crew, and the chaos of the battle as the Yamato approached its final moments. As the Yamato steamed toward Okinawa, the tension aboard was almost unbearable. Sailors could sense something in the air, planes on the horizon, the faint hum of engines, the knowledge that every mile brought them closer to the inevitable. The ship was a fortress, but even the largest fortress can be breached, and the Allies had overwhelming numbers of aircraft ready to strike. The first waves of American carrier planes appeared on April 7, 1945, long before the Yamato could reach the island. Dive bombers, torpedo planes, and fighter escorts swarmed like angry bees, coordinating their attacks with brutal efficiency. The Yamato's massive anti-aircraft batteries roared to life. Hundreds of shells streaked skyward, tracer fire crisscrossing in a desperate net to repel the attackers. The crews were well trained, their coordination honed over years of practice, but the sheer volume of incoming aircraft was staggering. Torpedoes skipped across the waves, some striking home with deadly accuracy. Flooding began to compromise the ship's compartments, and fires broke out in multiple sections. Sailors scrambled to contain the damage, working in smoke-filled corridors, up ladders, and across decks slick with seawater and fire retardant. Every minute was a struggle to hold the ship together, a battle between human skill and overwhelming odds. Amidst the chaos, the Yamato's gunners continued to fire. Each salvo from the 18.1-inch guns was precise, aimed at the largest concentrations of enemy aircraft. One sailor recalled the surreal combination of fear and focus: the deafening roar of the main battery, explosions in the air, the ship shuddering under the impact of near misses, yet still moving forward. It was like living inside a storm, with the storm itself determined to tear you apart, but the attackers adapted. They circled, feinted, and returned with relentless pressure. Torpedo hits disabled the rudder and damaged propulsion systems. Flooding worsened, fires spread across the superstructure, and smoke filled the air. Despite the Yamato's massive armor, it couldn't withstand this level of concentrated assault from every angle. Every hit reduced mobility, made it harder to aim, and added to the panic and confusion aboard. The bravery of the crew was extraordinary. Damage control teams worked tirelessly, often risking their lives to save others or prevent the ship from capsizing. Firefighting hoses were maneuvered in areas where explosions could occur at any moment. Sailors carried injured comrades to safety while shrapnel and debris flew around them. Officers coordinated with calm authority, issuing orders in the chaos, trying to keep the remaining defenses operational. Every action was a testament to discipline and courage under extreme pressure. The Yamato's final moments were a mixture of heroism and tragedy. Explosions tore through ammunition magazines, massive fires engulfed the decks, and the ship began to list heavily. Some of the crew attempted to abandon ship, leaping into the rough seas, only to face further danger from the explosions and the relentless attacks overhead. The scale of destruction was almost unimaginable, a floating fortress reduced to a battlefield with thousands of lives hanging in the balance. Aircraft continued their strikes, coordinating torpedo runs to ensure maximum damage. Fighters strafed the decks, making escape nearly impossible. The Yamato's main guns fired until the very end, a last show of strength against overwhelming odds. Yet the inevitability of the sinking became clear. The ship rolled, capsized, and finally exploded in a massive fireball visible from miles away. Over 3,000 sailors perished in those final moments, a staggering loss that underscored the grim reality of Operation Tengo. The human element in this tragedy cannot be overstated. Letters found aboard the ship revealed the thoughts and fears of the sailors, messages to loved ones, simple notes of farewell, and the stoic acceptance of duty. Many wrote of hope, pride, and loyalty, even knowing the mission was suicidal. The Yamato was more than a ship, it was the embodiment of a nation's final struggle, and the crew's sacrifice became a symbol of courage in the face of certain death. From a tactical perspective, Operation Tengo was doomed the moment it left port. The Allies' intelligence had already tracked the fleet, and air power had decisively replaced battleships as the dominant force in naval warfare. The Yamato's armor and guns, unmatched in size and firepower, were insufficient against waves of coordinated aircraft attacks. Yet the mission revealed the extremes of human bravery and the limits of even the most formidable technology in a modern war context. Historians often point out the strategic futility of the operation, yet they also recognize its symbolic importance. Japan's leadership wanted to show resolve, to demonstrate that even in the face of inevitable defeat, their navy would fight to the last. For the men aboard the Yamato, it was a personal battle, skill, discipline, and courage against impossible odds. Every gun fired, every damage control effort, every action taken in those final hours tells a story of human determination in extreme circumstances. The wreck of the Yamato now lies in over 300 feet of water near Okinawa, a solemn reminder of the mission's cost. Exploration of the site has revealed remnants of the massive ship, twisted metal, and personal artifacts of the crew, preserving the memory of a ship and its men who sailed into history knowing the likely outcome. For naval historians, it serves as both a case study in naval engineering and a monument to bravery, providing lessons on tactics, technology, and human endurance under fire. Operation Tengo also marks a turning point in naval warfare. The demise of the Yamato underscored the supremacy of air power over battleships and highlighted the strategic shift in modern naval engagements. No matter how large or powerful a ship is, coordinated attacks from the air can overwhelm even the most formidable defenses. The lessons learned from this mission influenced post-war naval strategy, emphasizing aircraft carriers, radar-guided weapons, and rapid response coordination over sheer armor and firepower. The story of the Yamato is not just about technology or strategy, it's about people. Sailors who trained for years, officers who led under pressure, and crews who performed heroic actions in impossible circumstances. This human dimension is what makes Operation Tengo unforgettable. Each individual aboard the ship faced death with resolve, contributing to a narrative of courage, loyalty, and tragic inevitability that continues to resonate decades later. In the next part, we'll explore the full aftermath of the sinking, the legacy of the Yamato, and how this operation shaped naval warfare for generations. We'll look at personal stories, historical analysis, and the haunting images of a mission that epitomized desperation, sacrifice, and the human cost of war. As the Yamato listed heavily and fires raged across the decks, the enormity of the situation became impossible to ignore. The ship, a colossus of steel and firepower, was now a chaotic battlefield. Sailors fought against both the elements and the relentless assault from the air, trying to keep compartments from flooding and fires from spreading. Every second was a struggle for survival, yet they continued to follow orders with discipline that seemed almost superhuman. By mid-afternoon, the Yamato had taken dozens of torpedo and bomb hits. The main gun crews were still firing, though their targets were increasingly unreachable. Smoke thickened, obscuring vision, and fires threatened to ignite the remaining ammunition. Amidst the chaos, sailors attempted to launch any remaining boats or rafts, knowing that abandoning ship was their only chance of survival. Yet the sea around them was being patrolled by planes strafing and dropping more bombs, making escape a perilous gamble. The final moments of the Yamato were both terrifying and surreal. Massive explosions rocked the hull as fire reached the magazines. The ship began to tilt dramatically, tilting toward its inevitable fate. Sailors who had survived hours of combat were now forced to make split-second decisions. Stay aboard and die with the ship, or leap into the ocean and hope for rescue. Many who jumped were struck by debris or drowning, while others were saved only by chance. The water itself became an extension of the battlefield, a cold and violent arena where survival was slim. From above, American pilots reported the immense scale of destruction. The Yamato, once a symbol of naval might, was reduced to a burning, sinking wreck. The combination of torpedoes, bombs, and fires made it impossible to distinguish crew from ship at a distance. This dramatic destruction symbolized the end of an era, the age of the super battleship, now rendered obsolete by air power and coordinated strikes. The human cost was staggering. Over 3,000 sailors perished, including both experienced veterans and young recruits. Personal accounts and recovered artifacts tell stories of courage under fire, of officers calmly directing crew amid explosions, and of sailors performing heroic acts to save comrades. Letters, photographs, and diaries recovered later revealed the mixture of fear, pride, and resignation that filled the hearts of those aboard. Each life lost is a reminder of the stakes and sacrifices of Operation Tengo. While the Yamato was sinking, its escorting destroyers were also struggling. Some attempted to provide anti-aircraft cover, others tried to rescue survivors. Despite their efforts, the overwhelming air power of the Allies made survival difficult. Several destroyers were damaged or sunk in the engagement, highlighting the futility of the operation. The mission, intended as a bold strike against the invasion fleet, had become a testament to human bravery against insurmountable odds. Historians often debate the strategic value of Operation Tengo. The mission achieved little in terms of altering the battle for Okinawa, yet it provided a glimpse into the mindset of Japan's leadership. They were willing to sacrifice the largest battleship ever built in a final act of defiance, hoping to inspire a nation and inflict any possible damage on the Allied forces. While tactically flawed, the operation showcased extreme dedication, courage, and the brutal realities of total war. The wreck of the Yamato lies over 300 feet below the surface near Okinawa, a haunting reminder of the mission. Exploration of the site shows massive structural damage, twisted metal, and remnants of personal belongings. It's a sobering testament to the human cost of the operation, preserving the story of a ship and crew that sailed knowing the odds were against them. The Yamato's final resting place serves as both a historical artifact and a memorial to bravery, sacrifice, and the tragic consequences of war. Operation Tengo also marked the end of an era in naval warfare. The sinking demonstrated that even the most heavily armed battleships were vulnerable to air attack. The age of the super battleship, once the ultimate symbol of naval dominance, was over. Aircraft carriers and air power had proven their supremacy, reshaping naval strategy for decades to come. The Yamato's loss became a cautionary tale for military planners, highlighting the importance of flexibility, intelligence, and combined arms over sheer size and firepower. The human stories from Operation Tengo continue to resonate. Survivors spoke of camaraderie, fear, and resilience under unimaginable conditions. Sailors manned their posts to the end, fought fires, tended the wounded, and tried to save what they could. Officers displayed leadership amid chaos, guiding the crew through the impossible task of survival. Even in defeat, the mission revealed extraordinary courage and discipline, providing a human dimension to a technological disaster. Artifacts recovered from the wreck, including personal effects, tools, and ship components, have helped historians reconstruct the final hours. These remnants tell stories that numbers and statistics cannot capture: the terror of explosions, the bravery of damage control teams, and the personal sacrifices of those aboard. Each item serves as a reminder of the scale of human effort involved in what was ultimately a doomed mission. The legacy of Operation Tengo extends beyond historical analysis. It influences naval strategy, engineering, and military ethics. The mission raises questions about the balance between honor, duty, and pragmatism. It serves as a study in leadership under extreme conditions, showing both the potential and the limitations of human decision-making when facing overwhelming odds. Even today, the story of the Yamato captivates. Documentaries, books, and museum exhibits recount the mission, focusing on the combination of human courage, technological ambition, and strategic desperation. The drama of the sinking, the heroism of the crew, and the massive scale of the ship all combine to create a narrative that is both tragic and awe-inspiring. In the next part, we'll explore the broader historical impact of Operation Tengo, including how it shaped post-war naval strategy, lessons learned from the mission, and the enduring memory of the Yamato in popular culture and historical study. We'll also reflect on the human element, the sacrifice, and the legacy of the largest battleship ever built. Even after the Yamato sank beneath the waves off Okinawa, its story didn't end. Operation Tengo left a mark on naval history, not because it succeeded, but because it demonstrated the limits of technology, strategy, and human courage in war. The mission became a symbol, a testament to the bravery of the crew and the futility of a desperate plan. Historians often analyze Operation Tengo as a turning point in naval warfare. The sinking of the Yamato proved definitively that battleships, no matter how large or well-armed, were vulnerable to air power. The era of the floating fortress was over. Aircraft carriers and coordinated air attacks had reshaped naval strategy forever. The Yamato's final voyage became a lesson in the evolution of warfare. Raw firepower alone could no longer dominate the seas. Yet beyond the strategic lessons, the mission remains a deeply human story. Sailors faced impossible odds with discipline and courage. They manned guns while torpedoes tore through the hull, battled fires in smoke-filled compartments, and attempted to save fellow crewmates as chaos reigned around them. The human resilience displayed in the Yamato's final hours continues to inspire, an example of unwavering dedication even when defeat was certain. Artifacts recovered from the wreckage tell intimate stories. Personal letters, photographs, and small objects speak to the lives of those aboard. Some wrote messages to loved ones knowing they might never return. Others left mementos for future generations. These relics remind us that the tragedy of Operation Tengo was not just about a ship, it was about thousands of human lives, each with hopes, fears, and dreams that ended abruptly in service of a doomed mission. The sinking also influenced post-war naval engineering. Designers studied the Yamato's armor, firepower, and structural innovations, but they also learned the critical lesson that mobility, flexibility, and air defense were paramount. The colossal battleship, once seen as the ultimate symbol of naval supremacy, became a case study in how rapidly warfare had evolved. The Yamato's power was undeniable, but its vulnerability to aircraft highlighted a fundamental shift in strategy that shaped naval thinking for decades. In Japan, the legacy of the Yamato became part of national memory. It symbolized honor, sacrifice, and the desperate struggle of a nation facing inevitable defeat. Memorials and museums preserve its story, while literature and documentaries recount the bravery of the crew. Its story evokes awe, sorrow, and reflection, a reminder of the cost of war and the courage of those who faced it head-on. The human dimension of Operation Tengo remains its most compelling aspect. Sailors acted with professionalism and heroism despite knowing the mission was likely suicidal. Officers coordinated amid chaos, damage control teams fought fires, and gunners continued to fire until the final moments. Their bravery was not heroic in the traditional sense of victory. It was heroic because they persisted, maintained discipline, and tried to protect each other under impossible circumstances. Even decades later, the Yamato continues to capture imaginations. Scale models, documentaries, and historical analyses all focus on the ship's size, power, and tragic end. It serves as a lens through which we can examine technology, strategy, and human behavior in extreme situations. The lessons of Operation Tengo are clear. Innovation and courage can inspire, but timing, resources, and circumstance ultimately dictate outcomes in war. Operation Tengo also reminds us of the cost of desperate decisions. Japan's leadership chose honor and symbolic resistance over strategic prudence, sending the Yamato to its destruction. While this decision preserved national pride, it resulted in the loss of thousands of lives in one of history's most extraordinary battleships. The story of the Yamato is therefore both inspiring and tragic, a complex mix of human bravery and the harsh realities of war. For military historians, the Yamato's voyage remains a profound study in decision-making under duress. The operation illustrates how technological might can be rendered irrelevant by intelligence, planning, and overwhelming opposition. It also underscores the importance of air power in modern naval conflicts and marks a pivotal moment in the decline of traditional battleship dominance. The legacy of the Yamato in Operation Tengo endures in popular culture as well. Films, books, and documentaries have recounted its story, emphasizing both scale and human drama. Its final voyage has been described as epic, tragic, and almost mythic, a collision of ambition, desperation, and courage that continues to fascinate people around the world. Even today, divers exploring the wreck report the sheer magnitude of the ship and the eerie silence of the final resting place. The twisted metal, scattered artifacts, and broken hull tell a story that numbers and reports alone cannot. Each dive becomes a journey into history, revealing not only the technological marvel that was the Yamato, but also the human sacrifices that defined its final mission. Ultimately, Operation Tengo is remembered for what it represents: the extraordinary courage of ordinary men, the limits of technology, and the consequences of strategic desperation. It's a story of heroism without victory, of precision and power undone by circumstance. And it reminds us that in war, even the greatest weapons are only as effective as the decisions and conditions that govern their use. If you want to see another dramatic naval story that shaped history, don't miss the next video. It's a tale of courage, strategy, and tragedy that rivals the Yamato in scale and drama.